Hello, just a few announcements before you get started on the notes. You will be using your journal today, so please be sure you have that and you will be ready to get started on page 17. We're going to pick up from where we've left off the last couple days. Don't forget that solving inequalities by multiplication and division is due today, so be sure you get that turned in. We will be discussing day 3 and 4 of the warm-up tomorrow, so don't worry about that for today. You can leave that put away in your folder. And today you're going to watch a video and you're going to copy the notes to page 17, left side. The worksheet is due before you leave today, so you're going to need to be sure you get that done. Be sure you pay attention to the notes and copy carefully so you'll get those done. Alright, at this time I would like you to open your journal to page 17. That's the same page we've been on for the last 2 days. If you'll remember, on Monday we talked about solving one-step inequalities, and we focused on solving by addition and subtraction. And then yesterday we still were looking at one-step inequalities, but this time we focused on multiplication or division. Today we're going to combine those two steps and we're going to talk about how to solve two-step and multi-step inequalities. Before we get to our examples, I would like you to glue the yellow paper that you picked up today to the bottom of the left side of this page. So when you're done, it should look like this. So why don't you take a moment right now and glue those on there, and then we'll start with some examples. Alright, let's get started. On the top left side of the paper, I would like you to write multi-step inequalities. That is what we are focusing on today. Which these are the ones, just like with multi-step equations, are going to require a little bit of simplifying or maybe distributive, some kind of process that has to take place before you can start moving the variables to the different sides of the inequalities. So let's start with our first example. 10 greater than 5 minus 3p all over 2. So here we have a fraction that we are going to need to clear out before we can start moving our terms around. So what I want to do is multiply both sides of the inequality by 2, which on the left side that leaves us with 20. Since we're not multiplying by a negative number, we're going to leave our inequality sign pointing the same way, so it's still going to be a greater than sign. And then for the right side, the 2's cancel out, so we are left with 5 minus 3p. Now that the two sides are simplified, we can start moving terms around. This is a difference that you'll see with inequalities that we didn't do with equations. On these, what I want you to do is move your numbers so they're together. You don't have to worry about moving the variable quite yet. We'll do that at the end after we have our answer. So right now I'm going to move 5 to the other side by subtracting 5 from both sides of the inequality. What that leaves us with is 15. Since again we're not multiplying or dividing by a negative number, we're going to leave our inequality sign the same. The 5's on the right side have canceled out and we're left with a negative 3p. Now we need to work on moving that negative 3 away. It is attached to the variable, so we're going to move it by dividing both sides by a negative 3. The left side, we've got 15 divided by negative 3, which is a negative 5. Now we need to remember the rule that we talked about yesterday. When you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So now we have a less than sign. On the right side, our negative 3's have canceled out, and we are left with p as the variable on the right side. So now go back to the first rule that we talked about on Monday. We now need to move our inequality so that our variable is on the left side. So that changes it to p greater than a negative 5, which is going to be our answer. So that is now ready to be graphed. So I've got my number line here, and I'm going to be counting by ones to get to a -5. I'm going to use an open circle at -5, and I'm shading to the right. Okay, so now let's do another one. We've got 4 times x plus 3 is greater than a -24. So on this one, we're going to start by doing our distributive property. We've got 4 times x, which is 4x, and then 4 times 3 will give me 12, greater than a -24. That did not change in any way. Now we need to move our 12 over to the right side, which I'm going to do by subtracting 12 from both sides. On the left side, that's going to leave me with just a 4x because the 12s have canceled out. Again, we're not multiplying or dividing by a negative number, so our inequality symbol will not change. And then on the right side, -24 minus 12 will give me a -36. Now for our final step, we are going to divide both sides by 4. The 4's on the left side cancel out, which leaves me with an x. Our 4 was a positive, so we don't have to worry about flipping our sign. So it's going to stay as a greater than sign. And then finally on the right side, we've got -36 divided by 4, which will give us a -9. Our x is on the correct side, already on the left there, so this is ready to be graphed. Here's my number line. I am counting by ones until I get to a -9. And I'm using an open circle and shading to the right. Alright, so let's move on and do another example. We've got 1/6 minus 2/3 m is greater than or equal to 1/4. So this one we've got some fractions, but we still will solve it in the same way. I'm going to start by subtracting 1/6 from both sides. And those fractions I would just type into the calculator. That'd probably be the easiest way to do it. If you don't want to do it that way, you could find a common denominator and subtract. But what we're left with, however way we do it, is -2/3 m on the left side, because the 1/6 have canceled out. We don't need to flip our inequality, so it's going to stay as a greater than or equal to. And then 1/4 minus 1/6 will give us 1/12. Then the next step is going to be to divide both sides by a -2/3, because we're trying to remove that from the m. We want to get the m by itself. On the left side, the 2/3 have canceled out, so we're left with just an m. Since we did divide by a negative number, we do need to flip our inequality symbol, making it less than or equal to. And then we're left with 1/12 divided by -2/3 on the right side, which would give us a -1/8. The m is already on the left side, so we don't need to worry about flipping our inequality over again. And this time our answer is ready to be graphed. -1/8 is between 0 and -1, so I'm going to put my point between there. I'm going to use a closed dot and shade to the left. Alright, let's do one more example. 7 minus 5t is less than 4t minus 2. So just like we've done on the others, what we need to do now is move our t variables so they're both on the left side. So I'm going to move -4t for both sides here. So what we're left with on the left side is 7 minus 9t. No change to the inequality symbol. On the right side, the 4t terms have canceled out and we're left with a -2. Now to move the 7 to the other side, I'm going to use a -7 for both sides. On the left side, the 7 and the -7 cancel out, which leaves me with a -9t. The inequality symbol still will not change. It's still going to be less than. And then finally we have a negative 2 minus 7, which gives me a negative 9. Our last step is to divide both sides by a negative 9. Dividing by that, we're going to have the 9s cancel out on the left side, which leaves us with just a t. We did divide by a negative, so we're going to flip our inequality symbol to become a greater than sign. Then negative 9 divided by negative 9 is a positive 1. The t is already on the left side, so this one is ready to be graphed. I'm going to put a open circle at 1, and I'm shading to the right. Alright, so now moving on to the notes that are on the yellow paper there. There are times that the variables will all cancel out from both sides of the inequality. This also happens with equations. These are some special cases, and I wanted to go through those with you because you will come across some of those in your paper today and in the future. The first of those is what we call the identity. On these, all variables have canceled out, and you are left with a true statement. The answer to these you would write is all real numbers, and you can use that fancy R that I showed you last 6 weeks. So an example of that, this is a pretty simple example, would be 1 plus x less than 7 plus x. So to solve for x on this one, well, we're going to start in the same way we had before by moving our x's all to the left side. So if we were to subtract x from both sides, what we end up getting is that the x's have canceled out, and so you're left with 1 less than 7. Well, that's true. 1 is less than 7. So this is an example of an identity, and so the answer would be all real numbers. On the other side, it shows you the contradiction. Also on contradictions, all variables are canceling out, but this time you're left with a false statement. The solution to these is no solution, and you write that with as a 0 with a line drawn through it. So here's another example, x plus 7 less than x. So again, you would start by subtracting x from both sides. The x's cancel out, and we're left with 7 less than 0. Well, 7 is not less than 0. That is a false statement. So this time, your answer is no solution, which we write with a 0 with a line through it. Alright, as a reminder, today's assignment is to complete the paper you picked up today, solving two-step and multi-step inequalities. There are a few that I worked in the notes that are also on the worksheet, so that can help you with those. Really, it's pretty straightforward. You're just combining what we've done the last couple days. So I want you to get those done. I want you to work alone, and I want you to turn them in before you leave. See y'all tomorrow.